They say you don't know the day your life changes until long after it's happened. That's a lie. I knew the exact second mine did. It was a Thursday, 7:06 p.m., just after I'd microwaved leftover spaghetti and sat down to watch the game. And that's when she walked in, still in heels, makeup flawless, and said 5 words. "We need to talk. Now." Not a hey, not a kiss on the cheek. Just that business casual betrayal. I paused the game, looked at her, and I knew. I knew the way you know the final chord in a sad song before it plays. She sat, not next to me, but on the other end of the couch like we were coworkers preparing for an HR meeting. "I've been seeing someone," she said. There it was. Not wrapped in lies. Not cloaked in denial. Served straight, no chaser. Like she was proud of her honesty. I didn't flinch. Didn't blink. I just nodded. "Okay. You're not saying anything," she added. What was there to say? Congrats? Thanks for the clarity? I'd seen enough spy thrillers to know when you're caught in the open, the only thing you can do is stay still. "Who is he?" I asked eventually, voice calm enough to freak even me out. She hesitated, which was laughable. You don't rehearse your betrayal speech and then stumble at the name. Mark. Mark. Of course. Her gym friend. The one who gets her. The one who sends her motivational memes and takes her phone calls at midnight. Mark, with the six-pack and the personality of a protein shake. Okay. I repeated. Because when your marriage gets reduced to a one-syllable reaction, there's nothing left to salvage. She looked at me like I was supposed to cry, or scream, or throw something. But all I could think about was how I still had half a plate of spaghetti and no appetite. She stood, maybe expecting a reaction that would justify what she'd done. Some outburst. Some proof that I cared enough to fall apart. But I didn't. I couldn't. And that's the thing about being betrayed. Sometimes, you're not surprised. Just confirmed. She left that night. Didn't pack a suitcase. Just grabbed a duffel and her laptop like she was heading to a coffee shop, not blowing up 15 years of marriage. Said she needed space. I gave it to her the way one gives space to a landmine, slowly, carefully, and with one eye open. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I checked her tablet. She'd left it on the nightstand, habit or mistake, who knows. Her passcode was still our anniversary date. Irony, that old friend greeted me like an ex-con running into his parole officer. There were texts. Of course, there were texts. Mark, still thinking about last night. Couldn't sleep. Her reply, I keep playing it over in my head. You, me, everything, everything. I scrolled. I shouldn't have, but I did. Found photos. Him at the gym. Her in outfits I'd never seen. The kind of pictures meant for someone you're still trying to impress. And that's when I felt it, not jealousy, not rage. Just this cold, surgical detachment. Like I was reading someone else's heartbreak. Like I was watching a car crash from behind a screen and realizing I was in the front seat the whole time. She came back that evening, let herself in like it was still her house, tossed her keys in the dish, and made tea. Tea. Like she hadn't detonated our marriage with the grace of a bored teenager lighting fireworks in a basement. How was your day? She asked. I looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time, I saw the stranger who'd been replacing my wife, brick by brick, smile by fake smile. Enlightening, I said. She didn't ask what I meant. Maybe she didn't want to know. Maybe she already did. That night, I didn't touch her. Didn't even sleep in the same room. She didn't ask why. Because now we were both pretending. But only one of us was done playing dumb. You learn a lot about a person by what they choose to ignore. Over the next week, she walked through the house like a guest trying not to disturb the furniture. She played the role of someone who still lived here, but I could see the edits. She stopped saying good morning. Stopped laughing at anything. Stopped looking me in the eye unless it was to check whether I'd broken yet. She thought I was crumbling. She mistook silence for submission. That's the problem with people who get too comfortable lying. They assume everyone else will keep playing by the rules. I didn't confront her. I didn't demand details. I started collecting instead. Receipts. Phone records. iCloud backups she forgot were still synced. Her GPS history alone painted a story even her fake tears wouldn't be able to smudge. She'd been at Mark's place 5 times in 2 weeks. Twice overnight. I cataloged everything. She thought I was watching TV. I was watching her unravel. Quietly. Strategically. And with a spreadsheet. I started sleeping better, oddly enough. There's a certain peace in having nothing left to lose. Every night she came home late with a bad excuse and the wrong perfume. I just nodded. Work ran over, she'd say. I'd smile. I bet it did. That smile unnerved her. Because it wasn't angry. It was composed. Like a man who's read the script and is just waiting for the final act. And while she laid next to me, texting Mark under the covers, I was 10 steps ahead. Because she didn't know I'd already spoken to a lawyer. Didn't know I'd started moving funds. Didn't know I'd rented a second storage unit under my brother's name. She thought I was sulking. I was staging. They say the worst part of betrayal is the moment you find out. Wrong. It's the days that follow, the rehearsals of normal life, where you and your betrayer waltz through the same routines like the orchestra isn't on fire. I became a professional actor overnight. Emmy-worthy. I made coffee just the way she liked it, extra oat milk, a sprinkle of cinnamon. I folded her laundry, even the socks I knew she only wore for him. I let her live in the illusion that I hadn't noticed she was gone long before she ever packed her overnight bag. "You're so quiet lately," she said one evening, stirring pasta. I shrugged. Just tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of watching her smile at text messages she tried to angle away from my line of sight. Tired of playing house in a crime scene. She sat across from me at the dinner table and prattled on about a new Pilates instructor. Blonde. Funny. Motivational. I nodded, chewed my food, and filed that detail away. Because Mark wasn't blonde. Which meant she was planting a decoy. She wanted me to suspect someone else. Classic misdirection. Sloppy. I stopped eating halfway through dinner, stood, kissed her on the forehead, and said I had some work to finish. She smiled, relieved. Good. Let her think she was winning. Upstairs, I opened my hidden folder of evidence. Every login. Every message. Every hotel confirmation. I had backups in 3 different encrypted drives. If this were a court case, I'd already won the trial. But this wasn't about court. This was about clarity. I didn't want revenge. Not yet. I wanted a front row seat to the moment she realized I was no longer her fool. That Friday, I asked her if she wanted to go out. Dinner. Drinks. A real date. She blinked at me like I'd just handed her a winning lottery ticket. Are you serious? Yeah. I smiled. Let's hit reset. She beamed. And that's how I knew I was close. Because only people who know they're guilty treat your forgiveness like a pardon. She wore red. The same dress she used to save for birthdays and anniversaries, until she started saving it for him. I didn't flinch. I opened the car door for her. Ordered her favorite wine. She was radiant. Or maybe just relieved. Feels like old times, she said, clinking glasses. Doesn't it? I replied, thinking of the GPS ping from 2 nights ago. Her car parked 2 blocks from Mark's apartment for 5 hours. We talked about everything. And nothing. She laughed. A lot. Too much. I laughed, too. Because it was hilarious. Watching her play house in the ruins she set on fire. I'm glad we're trying again, she said over dessert. I really am. Me too, I replied. And I meant it. Trying was the right word. I was trying not to get up and tell every person in the restaurant what she'd done. I was trying not to hand her the manila envelope sitting in my coat pocket, labeled her greatest hits. Instead, I reached across the table and took her hand. We should go away next weekend, I said. Her eyes widened. Really? Just the 2 of us? She didn't even hesitate. I'll clear my schedule. I bet she would. Back home, she leaned against the kitchen counter, swirling the last of her wine. Tonight felt good, she said. Yeah, it really did. She kissed me. Like old times. And here's where most stories shift. Where the audience groans because the protagonist caves. Takes her back. Believes her. But not me. Because after she went to bed, after she changed into those silk pajamas she only wore when she was performing affection, I stayed up. Opened my email. And sent 1 document. To 1 address. Mark's wife. Yep. Turns out Mr. Abs and Affirmations wasn't as single as he liked to act. I'd found her through a little LinkedIn cross-referencing. She was a CPA, lived in a townhouse across town. The kind of woman who paid attention to deductions and deviations. I figured she deserved a glimpse at her investments extracurriculars. The file I sent was titled, Joint Assets, You May Want a Divorce Lawyer Too. No message. Just timestamps. Screenshots. Locations. Her husband. My wife. I didn't want chaos. I wanted balance. 2 cheaters. 1 match. Let them wreck each other. And as I shut my laptop and stared into the quiet hum of the fridge, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Control. She slept soundly that night. Snored, even. Blissfully unaware that the fuse had been lit beneath the life she thought she was getting away with. In 3 days, everything would shift. And the next time she smiled across a dinner table, it would be with a lawyer sitting to her left and a subpoena cooling in front of her plate. Because you can lie to your husband. You can lie to yourself. But you can't lie to the evidence. Monday started like any other day in the land of delusion. She hummed in the kitchen, flipping pancakes like a woman in a breakfast commercial. I watched her from across the island, sipping black coffee, pretending I hadn't just detonated her second life 48 hours ago. "You want syrup?" she asked. I shook my head. "Just butter." We didn't talk about the weekend. That was her move, compartmentalize. Turn last night's lies into this morning's normal. But I knew something she didn't. The message had been read. I checked the email receipt on my phone before she woke up. Mark's wife had opened the file. Twice. Once on her phone, once on her laptop. I imagined her sitting in bed, blinking at the glowing screen, whispering, "No, no," as her perfect world tilted. Meanwhile, across town, my wife was pouring coffee like a sitcom character who thinks the punchline won't land. "Big week at work?" I asked casually. She nodded, too fast. "Huge. Campaign deadlines. Probably a couple late nights." I raised an eyebrow. "Late nights? Should I be worried?" She laughed. "Too loud. Don't be ridiculous." Oh, I wasn't. That afternoon, the cracks began. She called me from work. That never happened. We were a texting couple, and even that had dried up in recent months. But at 2:14 p.m., she dialed. "Hey," she said. "You busy?" "Just taking a break," I replied, even though I wasn't. There was static silence on her end, followed by a hesitant breath. "I think something weird happened today. Someone at work. Mark, he left early. Really suddenly. No explanation." I said, letting the silence stretch. "Weird." He looked pale, like something happened at home. "That's so?" I sipped my coffee. More silence. She was searching for cues in my voice, some indication that I knew something, anything. But I gave her nothing. Just static calm. That night, she came home late. No warning. No apology. Just a red face and the kind of energy people carry when they're rehearsing their alibi on the way in. "How was your day?" I asked, flipping channels with no interest in any of them. She dropped her bag by the door like it was suddenly too heavy. "Stressful. Work drama. Mark." She froze for half a second, then nodded. "Yeah. His wife found something. I don't know the details, but it sounded intense." I turned off the TV. "Intense how?" Her eyes scanned mine, trying to read the depth of my knowledge. She shrugged. "He didn't say. Just that he's probably staying with a friend for a while." I leaned forward. "Do you know what she found?" Another shrug. "No. But he said it was personal." I nodded slowly, like a man hearing about a car accident he caused with a flick of his wrist. "Must be awful," I said. "Finding something that changes everything." She didn't reply. Just picked up her phone and pretended to scroll. She didn't eat much that night. Tuesday morning, the first shift hit home. She was quiet. Real quiet. Not tired, not distracted, guarded. She didn't mention work. Didn't check her calendar. She sat at the table, sipping tea she didn't like, stirring it like it might reveal answers. "What are you thinking about?" I asked. She looked up. "You ever get the feeling someone's watching you?" "Only when I've done something wrong." That hit her. She set her mug down, not gently. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," I said, standing up. "Just a thought." She didn't follow me upstairs. By Wednesday, the unraveling was obvious. She was snappy, defensive, kept locking her phone when I entered the room, took fake calls, fumbled explanations. That evening, I noticed she left her laptop open on the kitchen counter. Accidentally, of course. Probably mid-email. Maybe hoping I'd peek. Hoping I'd confront her so she could twist it into an invasion of privacy. I didn't bite. I just walked past it and let her wonder why I didn't care. Because the real damage wasn't done by confrontation, it was done by composure. People like her are allergic to mystery. When they can't read you, they assume the worst. And for once, they're right. Thursday, she broke. "I need to ask you something," she said during dinner, barely touching her fork. I set my knife down, clean and calm. "Okay." She leaned forward, elbows on the table, eyes sharp. "Have you been following me? Or checking my phone?" "Nope." "You sure?" "Very." She blinked. She hadn't expected that. She wanted a denial she could poke holes in. "Because it just seems like something's changed," she added. "You mean like trust?" I asked. Silence. "No," she said quickly. "I mean, something between us." "There's always something between us," I replied. "Lately, it's the truth." She stared at me for a beat too long. That night, she didn't sleep in our bed. She claimed it was a headache. I knew better. I watched her through the cracked bedroom door, pacing, texting, deleting, probably trying to reach Mark. Maybe she already knew. Maybe Mark's wife had said something. Maybe he confessed. Maybe he blamed her. I hoped he did. By Friday, the tension was visible. She avoided eye contact. She stayed in sweatpants. She didn't hum. Not once. The performance was over. The script had run out of pages. I made eggs. She didn't eat. Just sat there, staring at her phone like it might turn into a time machine. I cleaned the dishes, packed my bag, and before I walked out the door, I said, "Going to see my lawyer this afternoon." She turned pale. "Wait, what?" I smiled. "You said something changed." "You were right." And I closed the door behind me. You ever watched a lie detonate in slow motion? That's what Friday felt like. She didn't follow me out the door. She didn't text. She didn't call. But I know her panic was already setting in. Not the loud, dramatic kind. The quiet kind. The "I just realized the check engine light's been on for a month and the car won't start" kind. I spent the afternoon with my lawyer. We'd already prepped everything weeks ago. What I brought this time were the final touches, the timeline, the records, the photographs. Exhibit A through Z of how she'd spent our marriage like it was Monopoly money. "You sure you want to serve her Monday morning?" he asked, looking up from the thick packet. I nodded. "Start the week off right." He didn't smile. He didn't need to. He knew. This wasn't revenge. This was a reckoning. By the time I got home, the lights were off. No smell of dinner. No clinking dishes. No fake laughter piped in through a podcast. Just silence. She was sitting in the living room, on the edge of the couch, like a kid waiting outside the principal's office. "I thought you were going to call," she said softly. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door. "You thought wrong." A beat. Then, "Lawyer." I nodded once. She inhaled sharply, like she was about to launch into a speech. But nothing came. The script wasn't memorized yet. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed a bottle of water. Her eyes followed me like a cat watching a closed door. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Sure," I said, cracking the seal. "But I've already heard your version of the story." "No, you haven't." "You're right," I said. "I've read it instead. In texts, emails, hotel invoices, your Instagram messages to a man you told me was just your friend." She stood now, angry. "Finally. Were you spying on me?" "No," I said calmly. "I was documenting my exit." That shut her up. I let the silence sit. "You have no idea how complicated things have been," she tried. I tilted my head. "They looked pretty simple from the pictures." "That's not fair." "No," I said, stepping closer. "What's not fair is sharing a home, a bed, a life with someone who's rehearsing her escape behind your back." Her face crumpled, like she'd finally allowed herself to feel the weight. But I wasn't interested in tears. Tears are easy. Tears don't fix broken contracts. "I made a mistake," she said. "One night's a mistake," I replied. "You made a life out of it. I didn't mean to hurt you." "That's the difference between us," I said, stepping past her toward the stairs. "I never had to mean it to avoid doing it." She followed. "Please," she said, voice cracking. "Don't do this." "You already did." In our room, I grabbed the folder off my nightstand. I'd labeled it "Final Offer." Inside was the settlement, clean, simple, fair. She could keep the car, half the savings, and a clean name if she signed quietly. No exposure. No courtroom drama. Just silence and separation. I handed it to her. "If you don't contest, we're done in 60 days. She took it with trembling fingers. "What if I want to fix this?" I looked her straight in the eye. "Then you're a few months and a different woman too late." She didn't cry that night. I know, because I watched her from the guest room security cam feed. Yeah, I kept one active. Not a spy, but to remember. Remember what quiet betrayal looks like when it runs out of excuses. She sat at the kitchen table until 2 a.m., reading the agreement, highlighting things, Googling terms, probably texting friends, maybe even Mark, though if he had any survival instincts, he'd vanished by now. I fell asleep to the soft hum of her world falling apart. Saturday was quiet. She didn't mention the papers, didn't mention the lawyer, didn't mention the week-long affair calendar I'd printed and pinned to the inside of her closet. Instead, she tried the only trick she had left. She made breakfast. Bacon, eggs, pancakes with the little blueberries she used to laugh about squashing. "Thought we could talk," she said. I sat, ate, let her try. She talked about childhood, about fear, about how she felt like she was disappearing in our marriage. Why didn't you say something? I asked. I didn't know how, she whispered. You sure figured out how to whisper to him. That ended breakfast. By Sunday, she stopped pretending. No pancakes. No forced smiles. She stayed in sweats, pacing the kitchen like a tiger in a cage. But this tiger had declawed itself. One affair at a time. She didn't sleep that night. I know, because I did. And when I woke up, she was sitting on the stairs, holding the folder. I'll sign it, she said. I nodded. I deserve this, she added. I didn't argue. Agreement wasn't a gift. It was math. She handed it back to me, signed, eyes hollow. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. When did you know? I stared at her for a moment. The moment you stopped laughing at my jokes and started smiling at your phone. Monday came with a fresh layer of silence. She left for work in a blur. No perfume, no smile, no love you lobbed casually like she used to when guilt was still her currency. Just the sound of keys, a half-closed door, and a woman beginning to realize she'd build her future out of kindling. I stayed home. I didn't need to be anywhere. My work was mobile, flexible. Like me now. She thought I'd sit around watching her spiral. Instead, I was preparing to erase her without fanfare. I opened my email, updated addresses, rerouted bank statements, and called the realtor. Our house would be on the market by Friday. I'd already found a place, a downtown condo, clean lines, good lighting, zero ghosts. At noon, I got a call from her sister. Hey, is everything okay over there? Define okay, I said, sipping coffee. Just, she's been weird. Evasive. Said she might be staying with me soon? Possibly. Ask her why. A long pause. Is this about someone else? I didn't answer. God, her sister sighed. She's always been that way. Thought you could keep her grounded. Guess none of us can. The call ended. I didn't feel smug. I felt done. By the time she got home, I was already halfway packed. Not in a rage, just quietly efficient. My closet was half empty. Books gone. Photos removed like expired coupons. The house was hollowing out with surgical precision. She stood in the doorway, blinking. You're really leaving, she said, like the words tasted foreign. I looked up. You already did. I moved out on a Thursday. No big truck. No tearful goodbyes. Just me, a friend, and a rented van. She watched from the window as we loaded the last box. Not once did she come outside. Her hands were pressed against the glass like she was trying to hold the past in place with her fingertips. Didn't work. I left a note. Short. Honest. You had all of me. I didn't need all of you. Just the truth. You chose everything else. No signature. Just closure. The new place was quiet. Smaller. But it felt big in the right ways, room to stretch. Room to forget. Room to remember who I was before she started editing me into a side character in my own story. By the end of the week, the divorce process had started to crawl forward. She didn't contest. She knew better. Instead, she texted me every day. Can we talk? I miss us. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. Not once. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I had already heard everything I needed to. 3 weeks after I left, she asked to meet. Not to fight. Not to beg. Just to say goodbye, she said. I agreed. 1 hour. Neutral ground. We met at a small cafe near the edge of town. She wore that same red coat from our first fall together. I guess she thought it would stir something. It didn't. She looked thinner. Tired. Not makeup tired. Soul tired. I'm not going to make excuses, she said. You were good to me. I know, I said. She nodded slowly. I didn't think you'd ever leave. That was your mistake. She looked down. I ruined everything. No, I said. You ended something that already had a finish line. I just stopped pretending it didn't. She looked up at that. Tears welled but didn't fall. That was always her style, close enough to the edge to seem sincere, never enough to jump. I hope you find someone better, she said. I smiled gently. I already have, I said, standing up. Her eyes flickered. Oh. I nodded. Myself. The thing about revenge is that it doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to work. She lost her job a few months later. Not because of me. Because of the fallout. Turns out, Mark's wife didn't just leave him. She told HR everything. The affair, the workplace misconduct, the falsified travel logs. The company made it quiet. Severance. NDA. You know the drill. She tried to get sympathy. But sympathy is hard to find when your bridges are still smoldering. Meanwhile, I was fine. Better than fine. I had a new place, a new rhythm, new friends who knew me without knowing us. I found peace not in moving on, but in realizing I never needed closure from her. I was the closure. My exit, my silence, my survival. 6 months later, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. It wasn't a plea. It wasn't even an apology. It was one line. You always said you'd never leave. You lied. I folded the letter, slid it into a drawer, and smiled. Because that was my revenge. She thought I'd break. But instead, I disappeared quietly and left her haunted by the sound of nothing.